Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you on behalf of Legends of India for the second chapter of these lecture series. We have had topics like body-mind connect in the classical arts, Guru Shishya Parampara, new form, new formula. Does culture unite or does it divide? So on and so forth. We have had speakers like Aruna Vasudev, Pratibha Prahlad, Shakti Mehra, Ashok Bajpai, Geeta Chandra, and many others who have spoken in the previous lectures. But the person behind this lecture series, who is no more with us, is Shanta. And therefore, the first lecture after her demise was last month when we had this in memory of her, in her memory. But now onwards, we have named this lecture series after her, Shanta Sarbjeet Singh Memorial Lecture Series. And of course we have a great curator, former DGICCR, Dr. Suresh Goel, who has been curating this for the past few months, and he will continue to curate the next few lectures. I am grateful to Shanta's son, her sister, and her Bahu, who are here amongst us. And therefore, as I said, that this was the reason behind calling this as the second chapter of the lecture series. This evening our topic is art in the era of technology. And we have icons of the industry. To begin with, to my immediate left is Srimati Sushma Seth. Sushma ji needs no introduction among you all. Dr. Sunil Kothari, Dr. Alka Pande, Vikram Lal, and the person who has been able to put this whole thing together, Dr. Suresh Goel. Thank you, Dr. Goel, and I request you to take it forward.
Thank you very much. Let me not get into the thanks and compliments at the moment because we have very little time to explore a subject which I think fascinates people, which has fascinated people from the beginning of the existence and continues to fascinate people even now. So let me not get into all these things. Let me just come straight to the subject here. Art in the era of technology seems to me it's a bit of a misnomer. Seems to me that it suggests that technology is something which has come to exist only in today's world, which is not at all true. The levels of technology naturally evolves depending on the level of the science, the level of people development and everything. But after all, the first wheel was a step in forwarding technology. When the human beings in the stone era, they made the first chisel, it was a step forward in creation of technology. Therefore, technology has always been there, and technology has always supported the evolution of art. For example, if you remember pyramids, how could pyramids have been constructed unless there was use of technology in carrying those heavy stones up to the place and carrying them right on the way up, 300 feet high, 400 feet high. That's the technology was used. The temples of Ellora, when you think of the huge cantilever which have been cut in the mountain, they used chisel, but there was technology because they had to compute how much they can take and how far they can go. So there has been use of technology, and technology has led to creation of art. Cave drawings. Cave drawings have been there for I don't know how many millennia. Bhim Betika, those who have visited, or the cave drawings in Egypt, in fact in almost all the countries. So technology has always been there, but yes, the evolution of technology in today's era has become much faster. Almost every day there is a change to the extent that it is actually bewildering. And people like me who are now not young anymore need to depend upon the young people to educate, to guide them through that kind of a labyrinth. So technology is not developing much faster. That is one difference really. Now to come to basically art in the era of technology, I really wonder if there can be any isolation between art and technology. After all, every artist lives in this world. His ideas, his thinking is related to the context in which he lives. And that living cannot be divorced from technology. It's all around him. Therefore, I don't think that we can really think of art as something different from technology on the simple basis of existence. But more so, since I'm a physicist, I know that physics and sciences are all about aesthetics. We continue to look for symmetry in this world because symmetry is what will actually minimize the chaos and will lead to the ultimate truth of existence. So aesthetics is at the basic of both art and science and technology. Therefore, there is that commonality. For example, even before an aeroplane came into existence, Leonardo da Vinci, the famous painter, the famous artist, drew the line drawing of a plane, even without knowing what it could be. And as Vikram mentioned, there were few, but at least he had a vision. So people have the vision. The arts and the technology, they have always related to each other in that sense, really. And therefore, I think what we need to explore is how art has been able to use technology not just as a tool of creating, but also as a theme in the creation. And on the reverse, today's technology also has depended on art in very, very fashions. So I think if the panelists could explore those ideas, that would be really wonderful. Today, however, there is one thing which is very different from the previous eras. With the growth in technology, particularly communications technology, the dissemination and the propagation of art has become so completely different from the previous days or the previous eras, when patronage was the only way which could sustain the art. Today, the social media has opened up this whole vast space for marketing of the art, and therefore the dependence on patronage for growth of art has come down proportionally. So that I think is something which is new and which has happened. And therefore, in today's world, it's slightly different from the previous era in the sense that the pace of growth, the pace of change is much faster, and the technology has been able to reduce the dependence on the patronage. I'm not going to say anything further. We have a very illustrious panel here, but before I hand over to the panel, I must say that I'm very, very delighted to see the large number of young people here in the crowd. The idea of organizing this discussion really was to engage the youth in growth and understanding of art and culture in India and globally. So your presence here is all the more encouraging. Thank you very much. May I now request Sushma ji to kindly take the floor. You may choose to speak from here or from the podium, but I know that there are slightly represented by the other panelists. If you can kindly limit your remarks to begin with to 10 minutes, because the idea is that after you've spoken, we have an interaction between the panelists to exchange on what the others have said, and then open the discussion up to the audience. And we need to finish by 8:30. Habitat will lock us up after that. Thank you. And this is, I'm told this is actually going live on Facebook. So, there you are. I think now they're going to change what they wanted to say. Thank you.
Namaskar, ladies and gentlemen. I remember very fondly my dear friend Shanta, who I knew since school, and we spent a summer skating and boating together in Edinburgh, and thereafter on the daily countries. The year is 1961, and in the Back-Ridden Theatre in Pragati Maidan, there's a play which is being performed of Lorca's called Blood Wedding. It is the last scene, and the protagonist of the play, the mother, is standing downstage in a pool of light and enumerating the tragic losses of her family and the tragedy which has befallen her family. The audience is sitting quietly, breathing and suffering with her. There is pin-drop silence, and she finishes her speech. Slowly the lights go out, and there's total darkness, still not a sound. Then the stage lights come on, and they all rise to give her a standing ovation. Cut to 2016, and this is the last scene of a play which is based on the story of Kalpana Chawla, the astronaut. And they are returning in her space shuttle Columbia after their journey around and orbiting the Earth. And this is being projected, a live video recording is being projected on a screen upstage. And there is excitement on the actor crowd on stage, her family, and there's anticipation, there's excitement. They're all watching the descent of this aircraft. As it comes, suddenly the aircraft bursts into flames. There are shouts and cries not only on stage, but in the audience as well. Then deathly silence as the mother sinks to the ground. All we hear are her sobs and the strains of the audio track. And the play ends, and the audience rises and applauds loudly. Both touch the audience, both performances touch the audience. They touched something within. A chord was touched. This was the moment of truth, that which Bharat Muni's Natyashastra calls rasa, that which all performing artists strive for and all audiences yearn to experience. Both performances have seen this. The only difference was, in the first play, there was this simple, effective lighting and the artist's craft. And in the second play, there were the video projections, and there was dramatic lighting, and there was a engulfing soundtrack, and a lot of sound effects, and a lot of technical assistance. Now, purists will say that this is sacrilege, but both achieved the desired result. And the effects of all this technology is astounding. This is the new theatre. And we may criticize it and find it crass, those who are purists, but the audiences are certainly buying it. Case in point, the extravaganza of Goel Azam here in Delhi recently, and the ongoing Kingdom of Dreams. They get not theatre audiences, they get all audiences who pay high prices to watch those performances. I went to study drama in Carnegie Mellon University in the United States. They have one of the best drama schools in the world, with a rigorous 4-year course in all the allied subjects associated with theatre: playwriting, direction, acting, lighting, stagecraft, history of theatre, reading all the playwrights, world theatre, costumes, makeup, design, all the subjects, and it's a production-oriented course. They too have introduced, with increasing demand in video productions and technology in the flourishing theatre world in the United States, they've introduced video production, computer graphics, electronics. All these courses are offered there, and as degree courses. So that is the future of theatre today. When I returned, I did 20 years of theatre on the stage, which I need to tell you because a lot of people were not born when I was doing stage theatre in Delhi. And then I did 20 years of television and films and new technology altogether. And now in the last 17 years I've been associated with the NGO Arpana, which Mr. Dr. Gupta and I were all the Arpana family. And I've been doing workshops, drama workshops with the students there, which are performance related, and we do plays at the end of it. There are dance dramas as well, there are songs, dances, music, spoken word, and I do a production with 75 to 100 students and mount it on the Delhi stage. It is a very expensive project. So I've had to learn this entire modern technique as well of stagecraft. And I take all my musicians and I take all my artists to the studios. I record all the songs, all the dances, all the sound effects, and all the spoken word. The entire dialogue of the play, I record it all. And with that, the projections which change our scenes from one scene to another will help, because to change scenery is very difficult. So the backstage screen projects all the images of scene changes. And all this is in that 1.5-inch pen drive, which the very generous and supportive modern stage service team comes, they set up my lights, they set up the console for sound and lights and projections, and I give them that pen drive which they have formed this dance drama or the play. And we can do as many shows as we want because we have cut down on our costs. So it's not, the new technology is not about trying to undermine the simplicity and the purity of theatre. It is to enhance the simple, pure power of theatre. To give to the audiences new stage experiences that never before been possible. Thank you.
Normally, at the end of one presentation, I do tend to raise one or two points, but Sushma ji has been so crisp and so good, I really don't know what I can say after this. And therefore, without saying anything at all, it's best to really go on to the next speaker. And so, Dr. Sunil Kothari.
वाइटर को बुलाना जरा, ये दिखाना है मुझे कुछ. Friends, after this very riveting talk by Sushma ji, a great admirer of yours, and wonderful what she said that with one pen drive, so many things can be done. So I also brought a pen drive. I think Mahendra will have to help me. Friends, I came from a very different background. In Bania family, 10 children. I was the youngest one. I was trained as a chartered accountant. But Dr. Mulkara Anand told me, get up from chartered accountant, you come to dance. So I went to dance. तो वो बहुत famous है ना वो शायर वो नाचने निकम्मा कर दिया वरना हम भी आदमी थे कुछ काम के. So little by the love of dance, I went and my life has been very smooth. Here is my dear friend Sushma. Getting confused with so many dancers that I meet. So it has helped me so much to enjoy the life at the same time, to understand what dance can do and what technology can do. Now, as rightly she said, there are very young people who have not born when the great Uday Shankar made the film called Kalpana. I was very young also in school, and I saw one of his little, I brought to show you the little image from film Kalpana, where he shows about the contemporary dance of labor and machinery. He was a great guy, and in 1947 he made the film, which was released in 1948 and boxed at the bomb. It was not absolutely appreciated at that time, but when you look back what technology could do, and I am amazed what has been done. आपको जरा दिखाइएगा कल्पना वाला. It is about Uday Shankar himself was a filmmaker. So what he did with his dance, he used his technology of making the film, which normally you would not have seen it. Within 80 days he made the film, and 80 dance productions he has shown. The first one is about labor and machinery, where he himself is performing marvelous man. And I don't know if you go on YouTube, you can see possibly now, but I do not know. You see this. Light bulb, can you put up the lights? called choreography. Exploitation of labor. So during the lunch time they run very fast and eat. No time for lunch. Go back to work as machine. I was told that Satyajit Roy saw this some 16 times and his Gopi Gaye Bhaga Bhai has used this similar thing about death. Most of the movements are from Kathakali. And look at him dancing. His waves down the way he moved. Top angle, entirely big scene. And then the final comment that they are all caught up by some mill owner who exploit them. Way back in 1948, he had the courage to show all these difficult problems. Yeah, we can stop there. I begin with this because in order to let the young generation, as Dr. Suresh Ji explained, many do not know that Uday Shankar had this marvelous ability to project because of technology, and this will become a very classic now, and it will be told that it will be restored to now 37 countries. I called Feroz Abbas and I said, if you can give me a little clipping, I would like to show. So he said something which is very funny, but it is all your film stars are there. Rishi Kapoor is there, and Shabana Azmi is there, and Mira is talking, but in between, what happens is the wonderful projection. Suresh Ji, I don't agree. I personally think Mughal-e-Azam has turned a film into a play in the most magnificent manner. My generation and people who are 60 plus, etc., if they think of the song, Yaar Kiya To Darna Kya Baat Hai. And when you see in the movie, you see Madhubala taking the khanjar और बंदों से खुदा से क्या डर, खुदा के सामने हम जो खंजर उठाए थे, बंदों से क्यों डरना है? The director has made dancers move away from her. And the singer, what Priyanka Barve, she sings so beautifully. Now, if you transform a film into theatre, a technology is helping. The settings are there, the way the dancers move around, the the bar dikhaya. My God, I still have goosebumps. I like it. I like the songs also. Or सुबह का आलम यह होगा तो कैसा सुबह का आलम होगा. Can we go on that very quickly? And then I'll come to the last point, what dancers are today doing, taking a theme. Now don't laugh at me whenever this have scene between Rishi Kapoor or Mira or Shabana. Ignore them. So the
बढ़िया शो बनाया है, जितनी अच्छी पिक्चर है उतनी अच्छा ही शो.
Same reaction when I saw Mughal-e-Azam on screen, exactly the same reaction I have when I've seen it on stage. It's spectacular.
I was wondering if you thought that there would have been no one imitating or aping the original actors. And
thankfully none of them have. They are originals and they're so convincing.
अच्छा किया उन्होंने कि वो उसी मकान को वैसे ही रखना है क्योंकि उसमें हमें जादू है।
आज जो था ये म्यूजिकल ट्रीट था, कई बार
मौलाली मौला
रासो खुशी के भी आए, इमोशनल होकर काम के भी आते।
What Feroz has done is it's really brought to life an era. Now we can be proud that we can be at par with Broadway.
It's an absolutely spectacular production. I've been glad I saw it, and I'm about to make my own film on stage on Broadway, and it was learning to see Goel in Bombay.
I love the choreography. I love that idea of the formation.
The actors are singing live, the dances, oh my god, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it.
The choreography, the costumes, even the singing, it was unbelievable. Darkening was absolutely out of this world.
She just absolutely rocked it.
I have the Goel हो गई।
In India, nobody has made a musical of this class. Amazing creation, very well produced, and very well performed. It was just amazing. And I, being the grandson of the Chula Chubu, I did not miss my grandfather. It really teaches you to respect truth and respect love. Feroz and his team have raised the bar when it comes to sheer production qualities. This is the Broadway style music.
It was fabulous. Every moment I was mesmerized.
It was like a dream come true.
Pretty much an unforgettable experience.
Fantastic, fantastic. Everything was outstanding.
The Crimson Mountains, right? An IMAX theatre production. So that kind of stuff. Fabulous. I never like to feel my parents.
Feroz Khan is the best, the best, the best.
आज हमारे लेट एंड ग्रेट केआरसी साहब होते तो कितनी खुशी और कितना फख्र होता उनके प्रोजेक्ट को बिल्कुल जिंदा सच्ची सुंदर तरीके से पेश किया। मुगल आजम जिसको मैं 32 बार देख चुका हूँ, मुझे लगा कि आज मैं मुगल आजम ओरिजिनल के आसिफ बनाम फिरोज अब्बास खान को 33 या 36 बार देख चुका और 36 बार देखने की ख्वाहिश करूँ।
No, I can't. It is a magic. I think what I was thinking today, they were to talk about art in terms of technology. This is what it does. I am mainly working more on dance, just because we'll also speak about the painting and architecture and all. But I still believe that when you go, because of my age group also, then I was looking at the audience which was 60 plus, but there were young people also. And then I found that if the young people married one of the girls, Sadhana Srivastava, her daughter, so then he said, oh Sunil uncle, I went and I spent 4,000 rupees. I love the costumes, it's so marvelous, etc. So I think the detail which is given and the way it has been produced is absolutely superb. A film can turn into theatre with wonderful dialogues, etc. That is all because of technology. The last point I want to show is that today, a dancer by the name Malvika Sarukai, she takes up a very unusual theme called the loom. They call it tari. And how wonderfully she has used lighting, the angles, the movement, and the overall production. It is the ultimate. It's going to be shown in Delhi on the 13th October. Those who people are here, they may have a look at it. I'm going to show it and then conclude my talk. Can you go there? See the way lighting is visualized. A story about the sari.
As I remember, the sari has been part of my life. As a young dancer, the sari was a proclamation. When I draped it around my 12-year-old body, I felt a new sense of purpose. As I grew up, it became other things as well.
See the lighting.
Something that spoke intensely of who I was. It wasn't simply a piece of cloth, an unstitched garment. It was an emotion, a state of mind, sometimes a statement. The looms spoke in rhythms that had always been a part of my life in dance. As I observed more attentively, the loom revealed other secrets as well. I saw connections there that linked it to poetry, music, myth, and dance design. I learnt of the warp, those strong, long vertical threads that mark the length of the sari and define the core of the loom. They spoke to me of the constant, and I heard in them the notes of Krishna's divine flute, essential and beckoning. I learnt of the weft, threads that cross and embrace the warp horizontally to create design, motive, color. I thought of these conversations as being private, as being something that spoke specifically to me. But in time, they demanded to be more widely heard. And ever so insistently, they became movement, became dance, became thari, the loom.
Friends, as a young dancer, Malvika has said everything that I want to say. I do believe that today, the young generation, the dancers who are young, they are taking full advantage of the technology in a big way. Even the small promotion what she's done is so fascinating. Those who are here and who love dance, as a dance critic, go and see, don't miss it.
Thank you, Sunil. We are eaten into 5 minutes from Alka Pande's time. Alka, so therefore, if I give you the bell, you know who to play. But second thing I want to say is that I am really grateful for the right to dissent in India. I still disagree that Mughal Azam was a great play. Just one second. It was a great production. It was a great production. It was a show, but it was not theatre. If I want to see Mughal Azam once again, I would still much rather prefer the movie than the show.
Thank you. Disagree, but I would say go and see it.
I've seen it. I've seen it. Yes. I've seen it. Both Shalini and I were there for the premiere in Delhi.
Shalini, disagree with him. I think he will disagree with me.
Namaskar. I wanted to say that it's a wonderful moment to have a presence in the absence, and I think we shall miss the redoubtable Shanta Sarbjeet Singh. I'm also delighted that Suresh Goel has brought such a wonderful panel together. I think it's a great learning for all of us here, from theatre, from dance, from the visual arts, and of course the great Vishwakarma, the architect. I am feeling a little hesitant about the still images that I'm going to show, because the human performance by Sushma and then the wonderful bouquet of images which Sunil showed was very, very interesting. It showed the whole leap of technology from modernity, from Kalpana to Thari. In what we call the fine art practice, we think mainly of two things, of painting and sculpture. But if we do a quick fast forward with the click of a button, which is technology again, it's a giant leap. It's literally a leap, as Sushma ji said, from a play to an astronaut of Kalpana Chawla showing all kinds of gymnastics on the stage. What I want to do really is show you, keeping my time, you can give me a little bell to just make sure that I don't overstep the 10 minutes. I've actually got 14 artists, and we'll just see how many I can show you. Because when we think of technology in visual arts, it's not as seamless and organic as it is in the performing arts. For many, many years, we've just had painting, sculpture, printmaking, lithography, chromolithography. Then we had Raja Ravi Verma, who made an offset printing press, the father of modernism in India. But what actually I'm trying to do is just jumping on to the 1990s in India. Art and technology started in the wicked 60s in America, really. But in India, it was basically in 1992 with the whole thing of video art, which happened here, that technology came to play a vital role. I just need a little help to get into my folder, if somebody can just help me get into my folder. Just that folder, all folders. Yeah, and here. Yeah, that's it. And F5, and then I go. What we see really is that most new media art, which we talk about, you know, it's we use big words, and I want to begin by saying that visual arts has the most pretentious language. You'll see that most art critics all over the world are basically writing for themselves and basically trying to show the power of word, which is impossible for the common man to understand. So when we say new media, we don't know really what are we talking about. Are we talking of computer software? Are we talking of sound art? Or are we talking of video mappings today? Are we talking of computer graphics? So this is a huge, brave new world which is opening. My generation is a very interesting generation. I would like to call it the lost generation. We are really lost. We are witnessing technology at such an absolute phenomenal rate. I still remember in 2000, when I went to do my postdoc to London, I was at Goldsmiths and I asked the librarian, I want the catalogue, and he showed me the computer. So I said, no, I want the catalogue. And what I remember of the catalogue was opening these Godrej cupboards and looking at the index cards there. And when I was doing my PhD, I used shoe boxes to put all my index cards, and he says that's the catalogue. So you see, the catalogue and internet is not even 20 years old. And the art that I'm going to show you in the last 25 years has absolutely gone to another level. In fact, I don't think anybody should even feel intimidated when they say that we don't understand new media art or art in the era of technology. But before I show you the slides, I just want to say one thing. We cannot keep technology out of anything, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's theater, whether it's architecture. Technology can just not be kept out. And the faster we accept it, and faster we learn to grapple with it, faster we learn to get into Instas and I don't know what next after that. Barely do I master one aspect of the internet, something new is starting. I want to begin with actually Prayas Abhinav's work. It's called Metaware. The exhibition, also the title is very interesting, Glitch Frame Lollipop. Now this is work of this artist, which is experimentation. He is a text editor. Now just listen how interesting the artist is. He's a Bangalore-based writer, occasional artist, infrequent teacher, and for the last many years has worked on numerous pieces of speculative fiction, some of which are now graphic novels in progress, software, games, interactive installations, public interventions. Now, What do you understand by that? It's really difficult because this is a text editor which is tracking the patterns of type stream of users, and do the patterns constitute rhythms that keep the text developing. Now, for most of us who come from a fine art practice and are used to the Shadanga theory of traditional Indian art, where you have Lavanya, Pratima, Lakshan, form, line, color, balance, what do you see here? There is no line, form, color, there are dots and dashes. But this is deeply conceptual art, and here it's taking the rhythms of text writing. I then want to show you the mother of all video art in India, Nalini Malani. Now this is called Remembering Mad Dog, Video Shadow Play, 2 single channel animations, a series of lights and 8 rotating reverse painted Lexan cylinders. So you look at the material, you look at the technology, you look at the shadow play, so you have a lot of things happening in this artwork. This is Vivan Sundaram's a digital creation, which is Amrita Shergill, and how he is using photography through technology and creating doppelganger images. This is one of my favorite artists really, called Shibha Chachi, who is using a moving image on a light box. What is very interesting about her is that she does a lot of site-specific installations. And also, I've particularly chosen this work where you can see a Mughal miniature painting. This becomes a digital book where she has used text, which is contemporary text, and traditional images, if you can see there, and how everything is moving digitally. Another very favorite artist of mine is Manjunath Kamat. He's done a slide and video presentation. This was done at the Lalit Kala Academy in Chandigarh. What I like about him is that he is really a hybrid. And today, all of us are cultural hybrids. We are not really, we can't say that we are specializing in anything because we can't afford to. There are too many influences, too many inclusions. Whether you take even the purest form of dhwani, there will be hybridity in that, because you can't keep inclusions out. So you see a Raja Ravi Varma kind of lady here, you see a woman wearing a dress, a very kind of Mary McFadden ruffled dress, you have a monkey, you have a nude man. So you're seeing a lot of cultural identities here which cannot be kept out. There is another very, very interesting artist called Baiju Parthan. What I want to tell you about Baiju Parthan is that why is he interesting? This work really is a multimedia bricolage. Now when I'm looking at technology and I'm looking at art, it is deeply conceptual. We had learned, what is art? Art that moves you. Much of this art doesn't move you, but it moves you intellectually. It just makes you wonder, now what is bricolage? This is a very, very postmodern term which you use. What is bricolage? The terminologies. How is there a patchwork of ideas? Why is there a patchwork of ideas? Because he has a very diverse scholastic and professional background. He trained as a botanist, he was an illustrator, he paints, he uses computer science, engineering, and comparative mycology. And this is what you see in this work. Because all this work, he has a hand-painted image, but over that he has used everything, every software from the computer. So the art is made sitting with on his computer table using the software of his choice. Another very interesting artist, and again somebody whose work I like very much, is the painter called Ranbir Kalekar. He studied at the Chandigarh College of Art and then went to the Royal College, and he does these absolutely fantastic video projections. But what he's doing is he's using a painted image. Both of them are his painted images, and then he takes these painted images, goes to a studio and starts working with digitizes them and uses slow, very slow moving video that they become almost like a flashpoint. How much more time do I have? Oh, okay. Then I will just end with this. This is Shilpa Gupta, another young artist, a new media artist who uses a lot of interactive video installation. And her work is everywhere. You go to any museum, you go to a museum outside Paris, you'll see her work. You go to Denmark, you see her work. You go to the Venice Biennale, you see her work. And what you see here is she is using all kinds of aspects of technology, whether it is lighting, sound. And in this work in particular, what she's done is this projection is 8 meters wide and shows 7 young women, the artist in each of them dressed in a camouflage uniform, freed of its original purpose. The clothing makes an effort that oscillates between military drill and fashionable accessory. The instructions and statements are spoken in an automated voice, almost robotic. This is how this is done. And I just want to end and just show you, yeah. Now this I wanted to show you because Ashok Sukumaran is runs an artist group called The Camp. Very interesting. There is, every 10 years there is exhibition which happens, which is called the Sculpture Project in a small town of Germany called Münster. I was very lucky to be there to see it this summer. And I saw Ashok Sukumaran's project. This is not the one, this is Neighbors, which was shown at the Documenta 4 years ago. But what he had done was that he had, in a theatre place, he had put these wires and connected it to a studio across. And every time you rang the bell, a woman would come from across. The studio or the window was about 200 meters away. Every time you rang the bell, the woman would get up and take a picture. So it was a very, very interactive thing. There was a human element, there was a technical element, there was technology of the camera, and yet there was some kind of a connection between the two people. So technology in the visual arts is galloping. How deeply is it sensual, which we all talk of rasa theory, we talk of the Natya Shastra, we talk of art as a moving experience. How moving is it? How cerebral it is? How much of the human hand plays a part in it? Or is it just going to be in the digital space? So this is a very, very interesting times that we are in, and I think they are very challenging times for many of us of our generation. The young people even hold the remote differently to the way that we hold the remote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alka. It was fascinating. And I think if you want to see how much art has changed with the infusion of technology, all you need to do is go to this famous daily art summit every year.
I feel a bit pressured because I'm speaking after just 10 minutes to speak, and I'm speaking after this distinguished panel, But I'll try my best to sum up some of the things. I also wrote about 7 pages to speak, so I'll try to sort of catch the main features because I think time is very limited. So fortunately for me, architecture is one of the disciplines that truly aims at the integration of technology and arts and enables them an equal opportunity. There is no such dilemma that one is greater than the other. And even the etymology of the word technology is in Sanskrit means taksan, which means carpenter. And in Greek it's tekton, which is again carpenter. So we feel very closely attached to the idea of technology. And there is a symbiotic relationship between the two, which I just mentioned. And we also know that technology invades every art form, and it has done many radical changes in art form. And one of the things that, because I'm also very interested in music, I need to mention before I talk about buildings, is, I don't think one couldn't have imagined that a voice of a small little girl would have become Lata Mangeshkar if it had not been for the invention of the mic. Or, the idea of a film song
could have captured the imagination of the world if we did not know that we could sort of compress a theme in just 3 minutes in the 78 RPM recording. So, what happens? What is it that happened in architecture, and how does architecture and art and technology in architecture relate to each other? And it's a long history, so I thought that I would pick up 3 episodes in the history, because this is not the only era of technology. There have been many eras of technologies in the past. And I think if we pick up 3 key points which is relevant to us, it may be interesting to see what happened there. And the first one is when architecture and technology, or art and technology, were fused into one. And there was no binary. They were not perceived as 2 separate things. This was the traditional idea of art in India, the Vastu Shastra would be, and this was when architecture was more of a sign than a thing. It was more of a symbol than, an object. And the second episode is the era of modernity, when technology took center stage in our lives. And when architecture then became a thing, was not so much of a sign. And, materials became and technology became the source for finding architectural form. Art of architecture started emerging over a period of about 100 years, and I'll trace that a little bit, since Industrial Revolution, to create the architecture of modernism that we are familiar with. And third is our times, where I think there are 2 things that are pervasive, and one is this notion of globalization, and it's a buzzword and difficult to encapsulate, but it's an important word. And the second is the digital world that we are living in, where it's not the sign or it's not the thing, but it's what's virtual that is important. Everything has got disembodied today in art, in sciences, in languages. You don't go and talk or send a letter, you send an email, which is you're living in the world of bits. So the first era is in the Indian traditional art and architecture. Creativity was not an outcome of perceiving the technical and the artistic as binaries, but the result of complete fusion of aesthetic idea. I'm sorry I didn't show this slide, because I thought I'll show you the Goharjan record, which talks about 78 RPM, but anyway, we'll come to this now. And so, but the result of perceiving the technical and the artistic as binaries, but the result of complete fusion of the aesthetic idea, the Shastra and the Prayog, the idea and the technique come together. That's what makes a Vastu Shastri. That's why you call him Vastu Shastri. Secondly, the creative process was such that the intellectual operation preceded the artist's manual operation. Now, this is an important distinction, because this means that the idea or the creativity was already incubated in the mind of the artist, whether it was a dancer or a singer. That's why you call it khayal, because you reflect first and then you express. So, so this is that tradition that we are talking. This is a very Indian tradition, and it was because of this, unlike the Western traditions, the distinctive meaning and purpose of Indian art cannot be understood merely as an accidentally inspired inspiration of an artist. And the subjective and the technological imperative played little part here, and instead art in India was seen as a spiritual practice, a means to experience the ultimate reality of, which could be expressed through sadhana, yoga, yagya, and all that. And I think Kapila ji has talked in detail in these ideas. And Heinrich Zimmer particularly, and whom I admire a lot, was he talks that the purpose of Indian philosophy is not information but transformation, which also compares with the goal of art in ancient and traditional India, where just as the seeker's ultimate goal is absolute bliss, Brahmanand, the ultimate goal of art too is to create a state of bliss, Anand. This also highlights another important aspect of Indian art, that the speculative thought and aesthetics are not exclusive categories. So Indian art, the foundation of which is completely on intellectual traditions. And therefore, the comprehension of the Hindu temple, which I am showing here, or the form of the stupa, the most important issue is not their political, social, or technical motivation, but instead the central symbolic idea. They are seen as incarnation of an intellectual concept rather than the idealization of a technical fact. And the imagination and invocation of the mythical Mount Meru and the physical Kailash is manifested as the central concept of the architectural designs of all the temples. The essence of the conception is best illustrated through a quote of a traditional architect or a Vastu Shastri, who said that it is commonly believed that traditional architecture is labored creation of men according to their own fancies and abilities. But our Shavagamas teach that the architecture of our temples are all Kailash Bhavna. That is of the feeling and forms prevailing in Kailash. And architectural designs of temples are inspired by this experience of Kailash and an attempt to recreate the same spiritual experience which is achieved through the process of abstraction of Kailash's cosmogony, cosmology and topography into a mandala that becomes the reference for a temple plan, and also through the imagination of the existence of different worlds at different levels of the mountain that inspire the elevation of the temples. For instance, this temple, every level is representing the egress from the mundane to the supramundane world, and or whether it is any Buddhist building like the Borobudur, which is actually a three-dimensional mandala for me, in Cosmogrammata, a perfect combination of the idea of Mount Meru and mandala. And there's so many incarnations or ideas of the mandala and Meru that has been used without losing the essence of the symbolic idea of presenting it. The Mount Kailash has been represented in Kailashnath temple at Ellora, the other Kailashnath temple, Brihadeshwar temple, Gandharia Mahadev, and if you look at all of them, they all basically are doing the same thing. They look slightly different, they have a slightly different narrative of architecture, but the symbolic idea remains the same. And the key point to note is that Indian art deals with the physical and the technical, conceives it intellectually first, and then aims at the transcendental. That's the symbolism of Indian art. We therefore are obliged to consider the dome of the stupa or the shikhar of the temple primarily as the works of imagination and only secondarily as a technical achievement. And there was a famous French, Paul Muss, who had said, in my work in Buddhism that I'm doing, he's one of the foundation persons in that, and he says that Muss has already suggested that the stupa is a domed form rather than a domed construction. So there's a difference between, form and therefore to have to be understood necessarily as a symbolic rather than a technical point of view. So this is one era of technology in art. Then you have the second era where we move from India into the 18th century world. Alka talked a bit about modernism and the industrial revolution in England and the insatiable urge towards technology, whose effects in life is felt everywhere. The laptop that I'm using and everything is based on that technology. And what we see in this period is the schism that appears between art and architecture, between art and technology. Actually, not art and architecture, but architecture and technology. And the overwhelming role that technology plays in determining art forms. And this era saw the development of several. I'll go back to some of the slides. Several materials, and one of them was steel. And steel was used earlier also, but metal was used earlier also. Copper was used, bronze was used, and the Michelangelo used it in the dome of St. Peter's. But he used it in a very hidden way, just to hold the dome at the base. He didn't want to express it. But with industrialization, the idea of using technology changed. And metal became an important element of buildings. But yet, architects were very hesitant to use it. So the first adopters, the early adopters of new technologies were actually engineers. The schism was already there. There was architects and there were engineers, unlike the Vastu Shastras. And so the engineers started using this technology to make bridges. And this is the Severn Bridge, in France. This is a very famous bridge, one of the first bridges in France which used cast iron to create these large arches, and create a structure out of it. Eiffel. They tried to use the same technology here. They were trying to find a way in which this technology could find an artistic expression. That was the challenge. Because you have a new technology, how do you bring it to an artistic expression? John Nash made this in the exhibition that he did, this Royal Pavilion by him in England. This is very fascinating because this whole structure in the 18th, 19th century was made by steel, but was dressed up to not look like it was made by steel. And that was basically the way in which new materials were being sort of imbibed and used. There was a historical posturing, there was reticence to accept that technology in the beginning. It has taken almost, I would say, 100 years before steel as a technology found its true expression and then went on to become the skyscrapers that we see today, you know.
This is brighter.
Yep. You know, there's another, but one of the early examples of where technology of steel and was seen to be beautiful and need not be hidden was done by an architect called Henry Lebrousse in France. He made the Bibliothèque over there, which is a library, and you can see the walls and the domes. It's very beautiful, and it's, you know, it was quite revolutionary at that time. And this, of course, when people realize the potential of steel, the spans, the long span, the slenderness, there are many technical reasons why steel is also good material. New buildings, new typologies of buildings like markets or big halls or gathering spaces could be built. So, eventually, use of steel created many kinds of expressions. One of the great expressions of steel was Art Nouveau. And we see a lot of it in Belgium. You know, in Brussels this is the work of Victor Hotta, who was a master at using this. What he did was that he took the material that was used first in bridges, in large public structures, and brought them at an intimate scale into private houses. So that was a challenge, to change the scale of that material and then use it in private houses. Okay, I will need 5 minutes more. Skyscrapers and concrete was the other material which allowed plasticity. Corbusier used it. It's a fantastic, the Rochon Chapel. This is the chapel, and it is supposed to represent the idea of a church. And it transforms the idea of the church completely without copying the old Latin or Greek cross design, by picking up the idea of an interior lighting of the church, and he makes this design around it. You know. Anyway, so the last bit, the last era, our era, what's happening in our era? And in our era, I think, you know, it's very complex. Globalization particularly is creating all kinds of changes, you know. Cultural globalization is basically changing the way we look at symbols. We are leading towards homogenization of architecture, where there's a sameness of things. All hotels are supposed to be same, because the consumer is a transnational class and they want to use it in a particular way, in the same way they want to use it in Hong Kong or London, you know. Secondly, the aspirations are global, because, you know, you can see the names that you have in Malibu Town, Dollar Hill, you know. So these are the products of, and at the same time, there's a counter reaction to that. There's a surging nationalism we're talking about. There's surging ethnicity, you know, religious revivalism and all that. But the digital world, the change in digital technologies is more fascinating for me. And it is doing 4 or 5 things. First thing is that it is dematerializing buildings. First, you would have to go to a bank, which would be a huge building, to withdraw money. Today you go to a small ATM. You see, so so the idea is that this technology, because it's technology of bits, it's changing the size and scale of buildings. Second thing is demobilization, because it's easier to move bits and information than people, and therefore it's creating new kind of relationships between places, you know, living, working. You have polycentric places, you know, people. For instance, I know a lot of artists have moved to Goa because they find it very comfortable to live in Goa and yet access the world and do work. You know. The third thing is mass customization, which is very interesting, because, you know, when Henry Ford said about his standard Model T and said that you can have any color as long as it was black, you know, that's no more valid. Today you can mass customize any building, and the example that I'm showing is the Louis Vuitton Foundation in Paris, which was done by Franco Gehry. And here the building has been, every component of the building has been customized. Nothing is industrially produced. Every curve of the glass. Lastly, you can now make buildings which are not intelligent. They can be super smart. You don't even have to have, you know, what we call smart cities or smart buildings. You can have prediction built into it, so it knows your pattern of life and you can do things. And last but not the least is that when you're having intervention in old cities or old places like in India, you can do soft intervention instead of breaking down like in the Industrial Revolution and the rebuilding cities. And this soft intervention is a great thing that digital technologies have brought to us. I think I've already run out of time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, what does happen is with panels like this is that they're also good and they have so much to say that we always run out of time. But as I said, that Habitat has a tendency to lock people up. So we don't want to be staying here. Okay, and now that the presentations have been made, normally what I did in the past is that there would be a conversation amongst the panelists for about 5 to 10 minutes, and the audiences would join later on. In this case, because we had just about 15 minutes, so I think we are going to throw the floor open to the interventions and discussion from the audiences. But let me put just 2 ideas here for the panelists to react or not to react if they choose to do so. One is, technology by definition is something which actually brings the kind of reliability in terms of operations. So it is repetitive. If it cannot be repeated, it is not good technology. Therefore, if an engine should be able to run, if you design it in a manner that it can run at 160 kilometers per hour, it should be able to do it repeatedly. And that is what technology is all about. Avinash is gone, the cameras. And there was a time when you did the still photography, you have to control the aperture, the shutter speed, and then when you were developing it, you have to really do all kinds of things. And then ultimately when you got the photograph, it was something really unique. Today, you have digital prints. You can repeat the same thing at no scale. Now, my question is that with this kind of a thing, is it actually enhancing creativity of the individual, or is it actually diminishing it? Maybe the different sectors of art would have different responses. And Vikram, to you, just one very simple question. If today you have to think about the development of architecture in India, what would be one example of really good building or architectural piece in India? Just that much. Thank you. And now the floor is open. The panelists. I will begin with the panelists. Let us start the discussions and the audiences will join.
At the outset, I must say we are ushered into a new world when indeed Vikram showed us so many of the things of dematerialization, so many things. I think normally we don't get an opportunity to see all this unless you are traveling abroad, like what Alka goes, or when I go abroad, we see all this architecture stuff. But to pinpoint into it in a manner and also forecasting like what is happening in the smart city is a marvelous idea. Also, Alka showed so many beautiful things that it is true, is mind-boggling. Also, you don't know what are the terms, the whole terminology is so difficult to understand. That what is the dialogue between the critic and the painter, one doesn't know unless the curator would know it better. आपने तो बता ही दिया कि अभी तो इतना अच्छा भी हो गया है. आपने stated so beautifully about that. You can do theatre marvelously by pen drive. Wow! And I also believe in pen drive. I also believe what Suresh ji saying. I do believe that if you want to be equally interactive with the artist, you must know the technology. You can't say, oh Baba, मुझे नहीं आता है, वो नहीं चलेगा. I'll ask my little baby. No, you have to learn for yourself because it helps immensely. I would say one thing before I end conclude. My very dear friend, Dr. Mulraj Anand's wife, by name she passed away. She was 93, 94 in Bombay, and one of my students from Sidney College sent me a little email. And I put it immediately on the Facebook. It's so many. You won't believe 100 of responses came about this one pastoration. So technology on a human level helps. I thought it's a very human that it touched many people who would not have otherwise known without this technology. Because paper doesn't know more. The newspaper ever would write about. Even when Shanta passed away, one dear friend, not even the Hindustan Times had the courtesy to put any one note about her. So technology can bring a lot of humanizing also.
Sunil, I had very brief intervention. I just want to know, because technology can also turn people into lazy creatures. And laziness basically means refusal to think creatively. Would you agree with that?
No, I think those are very aware. They will not. Those are very aware people. They will also know when not to use the technology, but to dismiss the technology. I see many children when they are learning. I've seen parents saying, no, you don't have to use this, take your food. I'm glad because the awareness is there. So it is not question of laziness. Sometimes if you do not know something, you go to Google and find out something. I want to know the date of Humayun. Immediately Google and the date comes. So I don't think I become very lazy. On the contrary, it helps me to find out, curiosity-wise, what technology is going to help me. That will depend upon the individual, about your own development.
Yes. It's actually, there is no particular order, Sushma ji. You can take the floor wherever you want. It's a freewheeling discussion now.
I know. But then I've stated that I'm subscribing to technology. I'm finding it extremely convenient.
Yes.
You said that technology is about repeating things and all that. I think the point that I'm trying to make is that that was one kind of technology. That's old technology. That's industrial technology. That was a technology that was required for mass production of things. The digital technology is about customization. Of course, you can repeat because it has gone one step beyond. You can customize anything today. You can customize. You talked about newspapers. You can customize your newspapers. You can get the print on your computer, the things that you want to choose. So it has given you choice. So I think today's technology is not about repetition. It's about becoming smarter in the way in which you live. Now the flip side of it, and that was another question that I think is that the danger of technology, is that you become a slave of it. And we have seen how modernity has been a big challenge for all of us. Chandigarh has been criticized many times. Even today it is done. And we all know when Gandhiji was asked about modernism in the Western world, what he said, that it could be a good idea. That was his reply. So it depends on how you use technology. It's technology on its own is a tool.
Vikram, would you like to answer the question about the architectural wonders of India? The modern architecture?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Actually, it's very difficult truly because every building has its own set of constraints, and therefore you cannot apply one a universal set of sort of parameters to judge any building. Every building is reacting to something else, and I would say that buildings that are inspiring are good. Architecture that is inspiring. The purpose of architecture is not about money making, or economics, or politics. The purpose of architecture is to inspire you. It's an art form. If you cannot inspire as much of number crunching as you can do, and what happened in the World Trade Center? The World Trade Center was designed by one of the finest architects called Damien Leewiskind, and he won that competition. It was an outstanding. I went and saw the model. It was an outstanding sort of building which symbolically represented the act that happened there. But they kicked him out because the builders could not build 3 more extra floors and they couldn't get the revenue in return. So the worst thing that you can do to architecture is to convert it into number crunching, and that is exactly what we do all the time.
You would like to name it school building, all right. Okay. Yes.
All I can say, Suresh, is that as a trained art historian, I'm finding it really difficult to actually even just technology is the tip of the iceberg today. I went to the Barbican Center 2 years ago. There was this whole thing on new media technologies. Believe you me, when I reached there, first and foremost, you had to book 3 days in advance. It was overbooked. And when I went there, I just couldn't understand a thing. Computer programmers had worked on setting up artworks. Now, how do I understand an artwork done by a computer programmer? I don't know computer programming. Then there were computer programmers who, when you went in, you were just given a kind of a device which you start playing with, and there are these large screens, and you start shifting artwork. So, is it art? Is it technology? Then you go into a room where there is a sound garden, and all what I could hear in that were hybrid sounds. Somebody talking, Tulu, somebody talking, some strange kind of language from the deep interiors of Africa. I don't understand that. So for me, it was a technological garden. It wasn't a sound garden. So what one has to do is you have to be initiating. Now everything, every part of, I'm only talking from the point of view of visual arts. And when, a thing like video art appears like child play for me because it comes from film. You can understand, if you've done film theory and you know what a mise-en-scène is, you've seen Eisenstein, you've seen Orson Welles, you know what a tight camera is, what a long shot is, what a close-up is. But when you are looking today at videography, now what is videography? Now if you're looking at video mappings and projections, what are you doing? You're looking at architecture, you're looking at camera movements, you're looking at projections, you're looking at animation. Now which world are you going to start looking at? And to understand that, it really, I say that, I feel overwhelmed. And it's not that I haven't seen enough. I mean, this year when I went to the documenta, one half was in Athens, the other half was in Kassel. And learning from the Greek experience, I mean, it became just an intellectual exercise. And then they built a huge acropolis with, what was it done with? All kinds of banned books which are there. And that becomes an interactive space for a long night of literature. Now, what am I looking at? Am I going to be appreciating the built heritage of iron, which is shaped like an acropolis? Or am I looking at taboo books? Or am I looking at performance? It's becoming extremely challenging when you are living through the history of this revolution. As an art historian, if I read new media technologies, internet, photography, I'm looking at the different movements of art I can deal with. But living the technological movement at the moment, believe you me, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Completely.
Okay. As I said, that it's open to interventions, comments.
The young people, yeah.
Is there any one? Please go ahead. Just raise your
Break
hand.
the ice, yeah.
Just Sunil, there has to be a microphone also. So just raise your hand and a microphone will come to you. There. There's a microphone somewhere here.
If it comes, can I frame my question?
Yeah.
Then my questions are addressed to Alka Pande and Sushma Seth. Alka Pande, you made the point that technology came to play a role from 1992 onwards. But how do you explain the fact that the movies which we still remember today are those which were produced in 60s and not which were produced after 1992 when technology came into place? And similar is the case about Western movies. I remember when I was in the school, and I used to see those movies, Lawrence of Arabia or Ten Commandments or Bridge on the River Kwai. Those are the movies I still remember today. But if I see an English movie today, I will not remember after 10 days what the content is so bad or so poor, so shabbily done. Now, Sushma said the question that I want to ask you is, because you have worked in the movies and also the theatre, I feel that the two mediums are a little different because the theatre suffers from limitations. What you can show in the movie, you cannot show in the theatre because there cannot be any location shooting, authenticity is lost. A movie like Sahaja Gulam was shown in the National School of Drama, but it had no impact because location shooting was not there. They didn't have those kind of artists like Meena Kumari and Guru Dutt and others. See, a lot of things come into play. I tend to agree with Suresh Goel for this reason, that the play which was shown at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, at Mughal Azam, it cannot be compared with the Mughal Azam which was released in the 50s or early 60s, because that movie was an outstanding movie, an example of perfection in every department. I'm not saying that Feroz Abbasi has done a bad job. He has done a very good job, but it cannot be compared with the movie.
And that is nostalgia also, no?
Nostalgia.
Shall we just take a round of questions? Let's. Yes.
Yeah,
Please go
I
ahead.
don't know whether it's a relevant question or not. It's a statement or firstly, it's a very, very informative and enriched discussion. Firstly, theatre, then dance, perfections and visual art and architecture. I'm somehow kind of an anchor in between this generation and this generation, and every day I take part. When I feel that you are so much content of art, dancing, theatre and everything, and you are merging yourself, art with technology. Here, when every day when I feel it, there is a huge amount of enrichment of technology, but I cannot find the content of art there. How this generation will meet the technology with the art? That sometimes I feel this distance, and I'm in between. I feel the anchor that I'm dealing with this as well and this as well, and somehow how this generation will add the technology with the art, how it is. So that's
a good one, really.
Yes. Because every day I feel this. Whenever I try, then I feel there's a huge gap in between, and you are coming this side, and which is great. But with your initiation, but how this generation will come this side, that is a gap which I feel sometimes.
I think that is where we are going to end the interventions here, because we have only 3 minutes left for the panel to react. Vikram, you want to go first? No? All right, Alka.
To answer your question, I made it very clear. It was about visual arts, painting and sculpture, not about cinema. Cinema is 150 years old. So when I was talking of technology, I was talking of the intervention and the emergence of technology in a fine art practice. You don't see technology in India before 1992. There was only different aspects or disciplines of art, whether it was sculpture, painting, graphic novel, whatever. But technology really came in with people like Nalini, Malani, people like Vivan, those kind of people who brought in the digital into the 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional work. So that is something I wanted to just specify, not cinematic.
Your answer is this only. There is a saying in Sanskrit, Parishilena labhyate. You go again and again, and then you start enjoying it. But this equation is so marvelous that we all could talk to each other. It's such happen more and more on your part also.
Yeah, and I want we should address these young people. So
Sushma, would you like to react on this question about the film?
I would like to tell you that why don't you expose yourself personally to an art form? You know, if you are a flair for painting, then paint. If you have a wonderful voice and don't want to go into music or dance or theatre, participate in that. Then you will feel, you will realize the beauty and the depth of it. And not veer so much towards the technological aspect of life and what it has to offer.
Would you also like to react to this question about the 1960s and 1990s?
The mediums are different, theatre and film.
Yeah, okay. Right now everyone is exposed to so much of films and television and so much of this. There are very few things that they can recall and hold on to and appreciate and have them stay, because there's too much exposure to the visual aspects.
Well, I can just a comment and not a question. Technology has always been there. We have been using technology in one form or the other. But I was just thinking while the discussions was going on, was that talking as a dancer in the 60s or 70s, when you use broad daylight, the power of dance should be such that it should be, even if you're dancing in broad daylight, you should be able to feel the coolness of the night. And if you were dancing at night and you had to show something about broad sunlight, the power of dance should be able to do that. Today, I think everybody started relying more heavily on technology to create that ambience rather than the power of
dance itself. That is one, but that is something which is moving, and it will go on. Secondly, as far as singers are concerned, पहले हम कहते थे नाभि से आवाज निकलनी चाहिए. Now today everybody has become so mic oriented that the basic training and the mic training is very different. And I think even in the field of classical arts, the mic training has come in more. It's crept in more. So, but this is evolutionary. It goes on. We do not know tomorrow what may come, but that's part of evolution, and technology is part of it.
So Khayal is going to die.
Thank you, Shobhaji.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Shobhaji, the way you summed up the whole evening. And I have no words to thank the panelists. Wonderful discussion. Thank you, Sushma ji, Dr. Kothari, Alka ji, Vikram, and Suresh Goel. But I also would like to thank the students of Jagran School of Management who are here today and who did the entire publicity for this program, the artwork, the design. Thank you, Nalini, thank you, Novina. Both have been very old friends. And may I request our Vice President to ask him to come up and give program appreciation on our behalf. While they get the bouquets, I can answer your question, Dominic. I have been working between the great artists and the audience for the last 15 years. There is no short-term to long-term goals. And people like Shobha and all will agree with me. You need to, young boys, you need to come and watch the dancers. You come and see the paintings. You need to expose yourself to the art. Unless you expose yourself to the art, you will not get an opportunity to use art and technology together. They'll always remain away from two different poles unless you come to bring yourself near to the art of any form.
Like a preacher, I always speak, but they are ready to introduce themselves as art sense altogether.
No, these are forums which will help you to bring them to close.
Yeah, that's why I
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Before we disperse, just wanted to announce the next discussion panel will be on the 1st of November, this fall, same time, and we have a fantastic panel for the discussion. The subject is art, is it media or message? And we have lined up a very, very good panel. We have Muzaffar Ali to represent the cinema. We have Lalit Pansing, who has been cultural administrator. We have a dancer by the name of Rukuni Chatterjee, who is very, very creative, and a vocalist, Sheila Kozer. So we have a fantastic panel lined up for that day. Do turn up in good number. And tell your friends.
Thank you everybody. Yeah, the students would like to take the program with you, the panelists.